These are supposed to be much improved from previous designs and supposed to give performance that's equal or surpasses 8-phase and 12-phase power designs. So, we'll see. From what we're hearing on the various forums, the board does indeed deliver on that promise, and then some. I mean, there's some serious overclocking going on with this board. And of course, lastly we have our 8-pin EPS 12-volt connector. That is to provide nice, clean power directly to the CPU and the power regulation circuitry. So you get a nice, powerful CPU in there and can go to town overclocking without worrying about power issues. Let's see, did we miss anything on the board? We do have our front panel audio connector. I believe that's what, yep, front panel audio. Don't see anything else. Of course, we have our various chips for the Ethernet. There's our Realtek audio. It's actually really cleanly laid out, and it's a very attractive board. Not sure if I like that power connector being in that place, but it's the same way. It was the same way with the P35 DS3L that I have in my machine now. I guess you just got to live with it. They have to put it somewhere. Zoom out and take a look at the board in general. Again, it's laid out fairly well. It's pretty attractive. I like the cooling. The North Bridge has a pretty beefy blue anodized aluminum heatsink. We have a copper heat pipe that's actually nickel plated, but it is copper, running from the North Bridge heatsink all the way back here to the heatsink that's covering one half of the power regulation circuitry, the MOSFETs. The heat pipe does not extend over here to the other heatsink, but it doesn't really need to. And we have a nice little blue aluminum heatsink on the South Bridge. This does use, excuse me, this board does use, in case it wasn't apparent from the name, it uses the Intel P45 North Bridge, and it uses the Intel ICH10R South Bridge. So you do get RAID functionality, and while the ICH10R is supposed to run a little bit hotter than the ICH9 did back with the P35 boards, it's designed to run hotter, so not a lot of people are reporting stability issues. They do run hotter. Some people have even slapped a little fan on here, but I don't think I'm gonna need that. So here again you can see the heatsink from the side. It would have been nice if they had included a fan, but maybe they don't think it needs one. The tons of people overclocking with this board certainly don't seem to think it needs any, so who am I to argue with that? So, the only thing that's left to do now is to pop this thing into my machine and see how it runs. The main reason I bought this board, I actually have in my machine now, you can see it humming along over there, my old Gigabyte P35-DS3L. This is a board I've had for about a year now. It's been a great board. In fact, the most stable board I've ever owned, I'd dare to say. And I've owned a lot of boards. Definitely one of the most stable. The reason I upgraded, though, is that the P35 board this is the DS3L, so this was a low-end board. It cost under $100 at the time I bought it, and pretty much stayed that way. But it did not like to overclock 45 nanometer quads. So the new Q9450, Q9550, Q9400, Q9300, all the new quad cores that are coming out that are 45 nanometer, the DS3L just does not like to overclock. It'll usually overclock them to about 3 gigahertz, maybe 3.2 if you really push the voltages, but that 3.2 is not going to be very stable. That's not anything really bad to say about the P35. It's just, you know, the P35 was designed back when 65 nanometer chips were the norm, and so it does do great with 65 nanometer chips. You can pop a Q6600 into this thing, and if it's a good stepping, you can push it way past 3.6 gigahertz. So definitely nothing bad to say about my trusty, rusty P35-DS3L, but it was time to upgrade to something new that would give me some more SATA ports and allow me to overclock my Q9450 much further and with much more stability. So that's where this board comes in. Now, one thing I would like to say about this board before I go about installing it into my machine is to talk about price and features. Just based on the features that are offered and the price of the board, I have to say, I mean, it is really, really impressive. Really, really good value. Where else are you going to find a board aside from maybe a cheap old ECS or PC Chips brand board? Where else are you going to find a board that offers 8 serial ATA ports? It offers RAID on those serial ATA ports. Offers dual FireWire, a total capability of 12 USB 2.0 ports, Crossfire. The feature list just goes on, and yet this board cost me about $130 out the door from Newegg, and there's actually a rebate right now that makes it $115 or $110. Can't remember quite for sure. But anyway, this is the feature set on this board, and the way it's purported to overclock. You know, I would expect to pay over $200 for this thing easy. It's just pretty dang amazing, you have to admit. So it's going to be interesting to see, you know, how it all works out, and we'll find that out pretty soon, and the next part definitely. Now, one thing I did want to take a look at here before we get this motherboard installed is this little chip right here. This is called the TPM chip, and this is kind of something new for desktop boards, at least consumer class desktop boards. Now, what this chip does, this teeny little chip here, you can even see it says TPM right to the right there. Anyway, what this chip does, and what it's called, is a TPM chip, which is short for Trusted Platform Module. And what this chip does is, well, it can actually do a whole number of things. It's a chip that's designed for security purposes. In this case, on this motherboard, what it's designed for and what it allows you to do is encrypt your hard drive so that the hard drive can only be used with this motherboard, with this set of peripherals, and that way somebody can't steal your hard drive and take it to another machine and do all kinds of bad things with your data. Now, TPM chip can also be used for certain security authorization type situations. A whole number of things this chip can actually do, depending on the application it's used in. For this motherboard, it's mainly used to encrypt disk access. So it's kind of interesting to see it on this. And you have seen TPM chips in laptops